Most people believe that when someone leaves your life, the connection dies with their absence. But that is the greatest illusion of the human mind. Some bonds do not break when the voice disappears. They descend deeper into the unconscious, where they continue shaping thoughts, dreams, fears, and desires long after the person is gone. What you once touched emotionally does not simply vanish. It echoes through the hidden chambers of the soul. You have been taught to believe that endings are absolute. A door closes, a voice disappears, a relationship dissolves, and the modern mind immediately says, "It is over." But I ask you to look deeper into your own life before you accept such a shallow conclusion. If these connections truly ended, then why do certain people continue living inside your mind long after they are gone? Why does one sentence spoken years ago still echo through your thoughts at midnight? Why does a familiar perfume, a song, or the sight of an empty chair suddenly awaken emotions you believed were buried beneath time? You see, the human soul does not obey the laws of physical distance. The unconscious mind is not a machine that deletes what is no longer visible. It is more like an ancient cathedral, where every meaningful encounter leaves a vibration in the walls. And some people, whether they were lovers, friends, mentors, or even enemies, strike the soul like thunder. The echo does not disappear, simply because the storm has passed. Many of you have experienced this without understanding it. Perhaps you once met someone for only a few months, yet years later they still appear in your dreams. Rationally, it makes no sense. Your intellect tries to dismiss it. I have moved on, you tell yourself. But the unconscious whispers something entirely different, because certain bonds are not formed merely through circumstance. They emerge from recognition. One soul encounters another and says, in silence, "I know this pattern. I have seen this before." That is why some people alter your inner world forever, not because they stayed, but because they awakened something sleeping inside you. Consider the young man who spends years trying to become emotionally numb after heartbreak. He builds success, gains status, distracts himself with noise. Yet one quiet evening he hears a laugh that resembles hers, and suddenly the walls collapse inside him. What shattered him was not memory alone. It was the realization that a part of himself was born through that connection, and he cannot destroy it without destroying a piece of his own psyche. Or think of the woman who was once deeply understood by someone who truly saw her pain beneath the performance she showed the world. Decades may pass, entire relationships may come and go, yet she continues comparing every conversation to that rare moment of recognition. Why? Because the soul hungers not merely to be loved, but to be seen. And once you have been seen at that depth, ordinary interactions begin to feel like shadows on a wall. This is why some connections outlive separation. Modern society fears this truth, because it cannot measure it. We worship what can be quantified: money, followers, achievements, appearances. But the deepest human experiences are invisible. You cannot place a soul connection under a microscope. You can only observe its consequences. The sleepless nights, the recurring dreams, the sudden transformation of personality after meeting one individual, the strange feeling that someone is psychologically present even in physical absence. The unconscious remembers what the conscious mind tries to forget. And perhaps this disturbs you, because you were told that strength means detachment. But I tell you now, the strongest individuals are not those who erase their emotional experiences. They are those courageous enough to confront them consciously, to ask themselves, why did this person affect me so deeply? What hidden aspect of myself did they awaken? For every powerful bond acts as a mirror. Some mirrors reveal your beauty, others reveal your wounds. But all meaningful relationships force you into confrontation with yourself. This is why separation can feel unbearable. It is not only the loss of another person. It is the loss of the version of yourself that existed in their presence. And yet, there is something profoundly transformative hidden inside this suffering. Because when you begin to understand that certain bonds were never meant merely for comfort, but for awakening, your pain acquires meaning. Suddenly, you stop viewing your past as a cemetery of failed connections and begin seeing it as a map of psychological evolution. Every person who left an imprint upon your soul shaped the architecture of your becoming. Some connections are brief but eternal in influence. A match burns for seconds, yet it can ignite an entire forest. Never underestimate the emotional energy exchanged between human beings. You carry fragments of every profound encounter within you, and others carry fragments of you as well. This is why your presence matters more than you realize. A single conversation, a moment of genuine understanding, a brief act of compassion may echo through another person's psyche for decades. The bond you created did not end. It simply moved into the hidden corridors of the unconscious, where all truly powerful things continue to live. Human beings possess a dangerous illusion. They believe that forgetting is an act of will. They imagine the unconscious mind to be a servant, obediently erasing pain the moment the conscious ego commands it to disappear. But the unconscious is not your servant. It is an ancient kingdom beneath the surface of awareness, vast and alive, carrying memories, symbols, fears, desires, and unresolved emotions long after the conscious mind declares them dead. And this is why so many of you are exhausted. You walk through life pretending you have moved on, while your unconscious mind continues carrying the emotional weight of experiences you never truly confronted. You say, "It no longer affects me," yet your behavior betrays you. You avoid certain streets because they remind you of someone. You become defensive when a specific subject is mentioned. You sabotage healthy relationships because an old wound still controls your reactions. From the shadows, the unconscious never truly lets go. You must understand this if you wish to know yourself. A man may swear he no longer cares about the father who humiliated him as a child, yet 20 years later he becomes obsessed with proving his worth to every authority figure he encounters. He works endlessly, chases status, fears failure, and cannot understand why peace always escapes him. But the unconscious understands. It remembers every wound the ego attempted to bury likewise. A woman may convince herself she has forgotten the person who betrayed her years ago. She smiles, continues her life, even enters new relationships. But each time someone begins loving her sincerely, fear rises from within like a serpent emerging from dark water. She withdraws emotionally, not because she is cold, but because the unconscious still associates intimacy with danger. You see, the unconscious does not speak through logic. It speaks through patterns. This is why unresolved experiences repeat themselves across your life like a dream refusing to end. Many people imagine healing means deleting the past. No, healing means bringing the unconscious into consciousness, so that what once controlled you invisibly can finally be understood directly. What remains hidden gains power over you. What is confronted begins to transform. Imagine your psyche as a great mansion. The conscious mind occupies only a few brightly lit rooms, while beneath it lies an enormous basement filled with forgotten memories, denied emotions, and hidden aspects of yourself. Most people spend their lives decorating the upper rooms, while pretending the basement does not exist. But eventually, strange noises begin echoing upward. Anxiety appears without explanation. Rage erupts unexpectedly. Loneliness consumes them in crowded places. Relationships collapse for reasons they cannot explain. And all the while, the unconscious is knocking from below. It says, "You cannot abandon parts of yourself forever." This is why certain memories return at the most unexpected moments. A smell suddenly transports you back 10 years. A song awakens emotions you thought had vanished. A random face in a crowd reminds you of someone you once loved, and for a brief second, the past becomes alive again inside your chest. These moments are not weaknesses. They are messages the unconscious is attempting to complete what was left unfinished. But modern society teaches you to distract yourself instead. Endless entertainment, endless noise, endless stimulation. People drown themselves in work, social media, temporary pleasures, and shallow conversations because silence terrifies them. Silence forces confrontation with the unconscious, and the unconscious is patient. It waits for you in dreams. It waits for you in moments of emotional collapse. It waits for you in the relationships that mysteriously repeat the same pain over and over again. Until one day you are finally forced to ask, "What inside me remains unresolved?" That question marks the beginning of transformation, because the goal of life is not perfection. It is wholeness. And wholeness requires that you face the parts of yourself you tried to exile. Many of you are haunted not by other people, but by abandoned pieces of your own psyche. The unconscious never truly lets go because its purpose is not punishment. Its purpose is integration. It continually returns unresolved emotions to your awareness because the soul demands completion. A wound ignored does not disappear. It descends deeper into the psyche and begins shaping your destiny. From the shadows, look carefully at your own life. Notice the recurring emotional patterns. Notice the fears that continue following. You notice the type of people you are repeatedly drawn toward. The unconscious leaves clues everywhere. And once you begin observing yourself honestly, you realize something astonishing. Your suffering has been trying to teach you the anxiety, the heartbreak, the longing, the emotional triggers. These are not random accidents. They are symbols pointing towards something within yourself that seeks recognition. This is why self-knowledge is so rare. Most people would rather escape themselves than encounter the truth hidden beneath their masks. But you cannot become truly powerful until you descend into your own depths consciously. The individual who confronts the unconscious becomes different from the crowd. They stop reacting blindly. They stop projecting their wounds onto others. They stop running from silence. Instead, they develop an inner authority rooted not in illusions, but in awareness, and awareness changes everything. For once you understand the language of your unconscious, you no longer fear your inner world. You begin listening to it. You begin learning from it. And perhaps for the first time in your life, you begin becoming whole you. Underestimate the power of your presence, because you have been trained to measure value only through visible results. You believe influence must announce itself loudly. You think power belongs only to those who dominate rooms, gather followers, or leave behind monuments the world can applaud. But the deepest forms of influence are often silent, invisible, psychological. A single human being can enter another person's inner world and remain there for decades without fully realizing it. Your energy remains in their inner world. And I do not speak here of fantasy or mystical superstitions. I speak of psychological reality. Every meaningful encounter leaves an imprint upon the unconscious mind. Every conversation charged with emotion, vulnerability, fear, admiration, or understanding becomes embedded within the psyche like a symbol carved into stone. Long after your physical absence, your psychological presence may continue shaping another person's choices, fears, confidence, and identity. This is why some people continue hearing your voice in moments when you are nowhere near them. A father tells his son as a child, "You will never become anything." 20 years later, the father may be old, distant, or even dead, yet the sentence remains alive inside the son's psyche like poison moving silently through his bloodstream. Each failure awakens it. Each risk triggers it. The father's energy still occupies space within the son's inner world, but the opposite is equally true. One teacher sincerely tells a struggling student, "There is greatness in you." The world forgets the conversation within minutes, yet the student remembers it for life. During moments of despair, that voice returns. When self-doubt appears, that memory becomes a lantern in psychological darkness. The teacher may never know that a single sentence altered another human destiny forever. Now consider this carefully. How many people are carrying fragments of you within them at this very moment? Some carry your kindness. Some silence the memory of being deeply understood by you for the first time in their lives, far more deeply than they dare admit. But modern society reduces relationships to transactions, temporary entertainment, disposable interactions. People meet endlessly yet rarely encounter each other at the level of the soul, and because of this, they fail to understand why certain individuals become psychologically unforgettable. You do not remember everyone you meet, but you remember those who awakened emotion within you. Because emotion is the language through which the unconscious marks significance. Think of your psyche as a lake. Most interactions merely touch the surface briefly before disappearing. But certain people fall into the water like stones dropped from great heights. The impact creates ripples that continue expanding long after the object itself has vanished beneath the surface. This is why someone may leave your life physically while remaining emotionally present for years. A woman walks into a cafe and suddenly remembers the man who once sat across from her during the most vulnerable period of her life. The relationship ended long ago. Rationally, she has moved forward. Yet something inside her still responds because his energy became attached not merely to memory, but to transformation. He existed during a moment when her psyche was changing, awakening, suffering, or discovering itself, and the unconscious never forgets what transformed it. Many of you listening to me have become ghosts in someone else's inner world without realizing it. Years ago, perhaps someone still gathers strength from words you unintentionally created, but your presence, perhaps someone still struggles with permission to believe in themselves. This once gave another person permission to believe in themselves, because every interaction between human beings carries psychological consequences, because that most people move through life unconsciously. The tragedy, see, is that, unaware of the emotional atmosphere they create around others, they speak carelessly. They manipulate for temporary gratification. They abandon people without reflections. Then later they wonder why the world feels emotionally fractured and spiritually empty. But the individual who becomes conscious of their psychological influence develops a different relationship with humanity. They understand that energy is not merely what you say. It is what you awaken in others. A truly powerful person does not dominate the room through force. They transform the emotional state of those around them. Their presence creates clarity instead of confusion, courage instead of fear, depth instead of emptiness. And this power belongs to anyone willing to become psychologically aware. You must ask yourself honestly, what remains in people after you leave? Do they feel smaller or stronger? Do they feel unseen or understood? Do they feel manipulated or awakened? Because your presence is constantly shaping invisible worlds inside other human beings. Never imagine that your existence is insignificant. The unconscious mind absorbs far more than words. It absorbs tone, emotion, intention, attention, authenticity. Human beings sense each other beneath language. This is why you can enter a room and immediately feel tension without anyone speaking. The psyche communicates symbolically, emotionally, energetically, and once you understand this, your entire approach to life changes. You stop treating encounters casually. You stop reducing relationships to convenience. You begin realizing that every interaction plants seeds within the unconscious of another person. Some seeds become gardens, others become ruins. Subconscious choice belongs to the level of awareness you bring into your presence. For your energy does not disappear when you walk away. It continues echoing through the inner world of those you touched, shaping thoughts, emotions, and destinies in ways neither of you may ever fully understand. There are people you remember with your mind, and there are people you remember with your nervous system. The first category fades with time. Names become blurry. Faces lose their sharpness. But the second category becomes something far more dangerous and profound. They become psychological echoes. Their presence reverberates through your inner world long after the relationship itself has ended. Certain bonds become psychological echoes, and most human beings do not understand what this truly means. You have been taught to think of relationships in physical terms. Someone is either present or absent, together or separated, speaking or silent. But the psyche does not experience human connection in such simplistic ways. The unconscious transforms emotionally charged experiences into living symbols. And symbols do not disappear simply because time passes. A psychological echo is not merely memory, it is emotional continuation. It is when a person's influence becomes woven into your patterns of thought, perception, fear, longing, and identity. Perhaps you have experienced this yourself. You hear someone use a phrase that an old friend once repeated often, and suddenly your entire emotional state changes. Or perhaps you walk through a city street years after heartbreak, convinced you have healed completely, only to feel your chest tighten, because the unconscious still associates that place with emotional intensity. The echo remains not because you are weak, but because the psyche records emotionally significant experiences differently from ordinary events. Imagine standing in a vast canyon. You shout one sentence into the emptiness, and moments later the sound returns to you again and again, each repetition softer, but still alive. This is precisely how the unconscious handles certain relationships. The original moment may have passed, yet the emotional vibration continues bouncing through the hidden chambers of the psyche, and some echoes last for decades. A child who constantly heard criticism may grow into adulthood, carrying an invisible voice within their mind. Even in moments of achievement, the echo whispers, "You are still not enough." The parent may no longer even say those words, yet the psychological echo continues shaping the individual's self-worth from within. Likewise, a person who once experienced profound love and acceptance may carry that emotional memory as an inner refuge for the rest of their life. During moments of suffering, loneliness, or despair, the echo of being truly understood becomes a source of psychological survival. This is why you must become conscious of the echoes you carry. Because unconscious echoes become destiny. Many of you are living according to emotional patterns created years ago by experiences you never fully examined. A man becomes terrified of vulnerability because an old betrayal still echoes inside him. A woman constantly seeks validation because childhood neglect continues reverberating through her unconscious. Someone else endlessly chases perfection because the echo of inadequacy has become the soundtrack of their existence. And here lies the tragedy. Most people attempt these echoes through distraction rather than understanding. They drown themselves in noise. They drown themselves in noise because silence forces land's recognition. But non-costaman. You cannot heal what you refuse to hear. This is why self-awareness is among the rarest forms of courage. To truly know yourself, you must sit alone with the echoes inside your own psyche and ask difficult questions. Whose voice still controls my decisions? Which relationship still shapes my fears? What emotional wound continues repeating itself through my behavior? The individual unwilling to ask these questions remains psychologically imprisoned by invisible forces. But the one who confronts their echoes consciously begins reclaiming authority over their inner world. And this changes everything, because once you recognize an echo, you stop mistaking it for absolute truth. You begin seeing that some fears belong to old wounds rather than present reality. You begin understanding that certain emotional reactions are remnants of unresolved experiences rather than objective facts. And through this awareness, the psyche slowly transforms. Now listen carefully, because this may be the most important realization of all. You are also becoming an echo in the minds of others. At this very moment, someone may still hear your encouragement during their darkest hour. Someone may still carry pain caused by your absence. Someone may still draw strength from a moment when you believed in them before they believed in themselves. Human beings continuously leave psychological fingerprints upon one another. This is why conscious living matters. Every word you speak enters another person's inner world carrying emotional weight. Every act of cruelty or compassion creates reverberations you may never witness directly. Most people behave as though their actions disappear into emptiness, but the unconscious records everything emotionally significant. Nothing powerful vanishes completely. It transforms into echo. And perhaps this is why some individuals continue appearing in your dreams long after they are gone. The unconscious has not finished processing what they represented within your psychological journey. They became symbols of love, rejection, transformation, longing, betrayal, awakening, or possibility. The echo persists, because part of your soul is still attempting to understand itself through that connection. So do not fear the echoes within you, study them. For hidden inside them are the maps to your deepest wounds, your greatest desires, and the unresolved parts of your psyche calling out to become conscious. And once you learn to listen carefully, you may finally understand that the loudest voices shaping your life were never outside you at all. They were the echoes living within. And now you begin to understand why certain people never truly disappear from your life. The bond survives separation. The unconscious continues carrying what the conscious mind tries to bury. Your energy remains alive in the inner worlds of others, and some relationships become psychological echoes that shape destiny, long after silence replaces conversation. But here is the question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. What echoes are you creating inside the people who encounter you? When your name enters someone's mind years from now, will it awaken fear or strength, confusion or clarity? Will your presence become a wound they endlessly battle, or a force that helped awaken them into a deeper version of themselves? Because every human being leaves traces within the souls of others. The tragedy is that most people move through life unconsciously, never realizing that a single moment of understanding can transform another person forever. A sentence spoken carelessly can become an inner prison. A moment of genuine compassion can become an inner light carried through decades of darkness. So tonight, after this video ends and silence fills the room around you, I want you to sit alone for a moment and listen carefully to your own inner world. Listen to the voices that still shape your emotions, the memories that still move your spirit, the people whose echoes continue living within your psyche. Then ask yourself honestly, are you living according to your own consciousness? Or according to echoes you never questioned? If this journey into the unconscious awakened something inside you, then remain with us. Subscribe, because there are depths within the human psyche that most people will never dare explore. And I want you to write in the comments the one connection, memory, or psychological echo that changed your life forever. Because sometimes in speaking what haunts the soul, we finally begin to understand it.